Welcome, everyone, to our weekly Torah learning of spreading more light into the world. We always like to start off with giving because how we give, that's how Hashem's going to give to us. Let's give generously, so Hashem will give us generously. I'm going to put some coins in the tzedakah box. Please join me from home. We're going to say some names for Tehillim, and we're including everyone in these names. The Tzemach Tzedek said, if we only knew the power of Tehillim, we would say it day and night. Refuah Shalema, these are some very personal friends in my life. Refuah Shalema for Yosef ben Devorah Leah, Yosef Yitzchak ben Bela, Rafal Chaimer ben Simachasha, Yosef Shlomo ben Risha, Devorah Leah bas Yafa Liba, Esther Bela bas Yocheved Chana, Gershon Leib ben Menucha, Zipporah bas Yocheved Zisel, Avram ben Fega Golda, and Meir Simcha ben Rifkadina. May they all merit to have a refuah. And we're also saying to Tehillim that everyone should have what they need and want, and of course, Mashiach should come. We're going to say Psalm 20, Kapitel Chaf. Lam Natseach Mizmar LeDavid, Yancha Adonai B'yem Sarah. Yisagevcha Shem Elahea Kai V'yishlach Ezracha Mikaidesh. Umitzian Yisadeka, Yiskar Kol Min Chaisecha Ve'elasta Yidash Nesela. Yitain Lacha Chilva Vevcha V'chol Tascha Yimalei. Neranana Bishua Secha V'Shem Eloheinu Nidgal Yimalei Denai Kol Mishalei Secha. Ato Yadaiti Ki Yeshia Denai Mishichaya Nehu Mishmei Kachai B'Gvorei Shisha Yiminai. Ela Varecha V'Ela Vasusim V'Anachnu B'Shem Adonai Eloheinu Naskir. Hema Karu V'Nafalu V'Anachnu Kamnu V'Nesaydad. Adonai Hashia Hamelach Yaninu V'Yim Karinu. Today we have with us a really special guest. A little bit ago, we had an incredible guest speaker speak about her father. Suri Krinsky spoke about her father, Rabbi Gershon Mendel Garelik, who was sent on shluchas with his lovely wife. And we know when the Rebbe sent a shliach, he sent the wife and the husband together. And over 60 years ago, the Rebbe handpicked Mrs. and Rabbi Garelik to share, to spread light in Milan, Italy. And today, I'm so humbled and honored. We have an incredible guest with us, actually, the Shlucha of Milan, Italy. And she's going to share with us some stories of how she went out for Shluchas. But first, we're going to hear a little bit about her childhood and upbringing, because we heard a little bit about Rabbi Gershon Mendel's childhood, and it's fascinating. So welcome, Mrs.
Thank you.
Garelik. Honored and humbled to have you with us today.
My honor. Thank you
And
very much.
I want to thank her daughter, Sari, because she really recommended that her mother should be the one to say the stories of Shluchas, and she was very adamant about it, that it has to come from you. So honored.
Okay. I was born into a family of Shluchim. So to me, Shlichus was just as normal as keeping Shabbos and eating kosher and whatever else we were doing without not even asking about or questioning it. This was our normal way of being. When we became Chas and Kala, I wrote to the Rebbe, please send us wherever you want. Please send us wherever you want. Please send us. 3 times I wrote to the Rebbe. He never answered me, but that was okay. I wanted him to know that we wanted to go on shtichus, because at that time, it wasn't a common thing yet. This was 1958, and the Rebbe took on the Nesius in 51. So it was just more or less the beginning of his Nesius, but I want him to know that we were going to do this with all our heart and soul. And I want to make it very clear. There was no Mesiras Nefesh involved. It's not as though I was giving up anything or I was sacrificing anything. I always say it would have taken more Mesiras Nefesh not to go on Shlichus than it took to go on Shlichus. Because as I said, it was a given. It was normal.
So why was it normal for you? Meaning, like, where did your family come from? If you could walk us back a little bit from the history of Russia. Like,
okay.
I'm sure you had some connections to the Rebbeim, your family. And what's your maiden name? And who are your parents?
My maiden name is Posner, Bassie Posner. My parents were Rabbi Sholem and Rabbi Simchaya Posner. They came from Russia. From Russia, they went to Palestine. They got married there. My 2 older brothers were born there. Then The Friedrich Rebbe, the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe, told them they should go to America. They went to America. They went to New Jersey. They lived in New Jersey, and my older sister and a third brother were born in New Jersey. Now, very interestingly, my parents, my mother, sent my two older brothers, and how old were they? They were 10, 11 years old. I wasn't born yet. My mother, my parents, sent them to New York to Torah Vodaas, which was the only yeshiva, and they went every day by train from New Jersey to New York. One day, the two boys come home early, and my mother says, "What happened?" And they say, "Well, Tati didn't pay the tuition, and so we were sent home." Now, this was the early 1930s. Parnassa was not very easy. But what was so brilliant about my mother was that she understood that to tell my father that he should go and settle things here would have been very devastating for her husband, for our father, to have to admit that things are hard for him financially. She didn't say a word to him. Now, my third brother, who was now just an infant, he was just maybe 2 years old, he was born, being as by birth, the doctor was trying to take him with forceps. It didn't work, and he was born naturally, but using the forceps, the doctor had dislocated his arm. Being as he was born with a dislocated arm, he immediately had, there was a doctor that was giving him therapy. The doctor was not Jewish. The doctor knew that my parents couldn't afford to pay for the therapy, and he gave him the therapy anyway. Okay, so now my mother is going to take the two brothers, go back to Torah Vodaas, and what did she do? She took a whole pack of the unpaid bills for the physical therapist. She took the two boys, and she took her two boys, and she took the train. She went back to New York. And this was at a time when her Jewish friends were saying, "Why are you sending your children to New York? You're an unnatural mother. This isn't Europe. This isn't the old country. You can send them to public school. There's no religion there." My mother, of course, didn't listen to any of that. She went back to yeshiva. She went to the menahel with her two boys. She put the pack of the bills from the physical therapist on the desk, and she said, "Look, here you see that I can't afford to pay the physical therapist. He's not Jewish, and he still is giving my child, visiting my child regularly, even though he won't be good." She wanted to show him that she wasn't just not making. And she said, "Can I say it in Yiddish the way she said it?" Okay. Reich, and then I'll explain it. Reich kann man werden auf der Elter. Aber Kinder Talmidei Chachamim, dafür macht man sie seinen jung. She said, "Rich, you can become also when you're older. But children should become Talmidei Chachamim. You can't wait until older. You have to start." Excuse me just a second. Okay. But children, they should grow up to be Talmidei Chachamim. You have to start when they're young, and don't ever send them home again. This was my mother. Okay. Shortly after, in 19...
And they agreed to that, the school?
Listen, to see a mother come in those days when nobody even wanted to send their kids to yeshiva, and to explain, here these two boys were traveling every day from New Jersey to New York, and all this because she wanted... What was the problem? They didn't have enough money for the tuition. She showed him, "You're right, I'm not paying the tuition, but not because I don't want to, because I don't think it's important, because I don't have it. One day I'll have it, I'll give it to you. But my kids have to learn now, and don't send them home." They didn't, not only they accepted it, they appreciated it, and they admired her. They admired her for her conviction, and admired for her whole way of approaching this problem. In any case, then in 1937, 38, my parents were sent to Chicago. And I was born there, and my younger sister was born there. So as I said, I was born into a family of shlichus. Now, of
And
course,
who sent them to Chicago?
what happened was there were Lubavitch Chassidim in New York, and they had said there's a shul in Chicago, the B'nai Reuven shul, it's a Lubavitcher shul, and they need to have some chizuk and stuff like that. And so I only know about Rabbi Jacobson, that he was in New York, but obviously the Rebbe was also mixed into this thing. I'll tell you something right away, right like that. In any case, my father was sent to Chicago. He went, and he was the shamish of the show. But when people had a shaila, they didn't go to the Rav, they went to the shamish. And just to tell you, in 1940, 41, the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America. And there were some wealthy Balabatim there in Chicago who could immediately buy their tickets and go by train to Chicago to see the Rebbe. My father couldn't afford the train ticket. And when they went there, they said, because they thought here's a shamish, oh, well, who can he be already? They said to the Rebbe, does the Rebbe know a Reb Sholem Paisner? And the Rebbe's answer, Sholem? Sholem is mine. Sholem is mine. So they realized, but my mother wanted my father, she knew he was chalashing to go to New York to see the Rebbe. That summer, she cooked for tourists and sold, obviously, she made the money. She didn't permit herself to buy a new pair of shoes for herself. So she wouldn't go out during the day because she was a lady. And my brothers would go for walks with her in the evening when she could go out like that. And she wanted to make enough money. Number one, my father should have a round trip ticket by train to New York. Number two, a new sirtuk he should have. And number three, he should have money for Maimid. Maimid, you give, how did you start this thought? Giving tzedakah. When you give to the Rebbe for what he needs, you're not giving tzedakah. You're giving Maimid. Maimid means you're putting yourself on you. You're supporting yourself. In other words, when you give to the Rebbe, who are you really helping? You're helping yourself. And that's why it's called Maimid. My mother wanted him to have also Maimid to bring to the Rebbe. And she worked the whole summer until he could go to New York. Okay. So again, I didn't understand any of this. I was much too small for that. All right, let's go a little further. In about 1942, let's say 44, my sister was born. It was about around 1944. Okay, she was born in 42. The Frierdiker Rebbe was in New York, and this came directly from the Frierdiker Rebbe. He sent my parents to Pittsburgh. When someone asked my father, why are you going to Pittsburgh? He said, well, I'm going there to make a school. He called the school Yeshiva Tamimim. It was day school. You're making a yeshiva in Pittsburgh. When grass will grow on the palm of my hand, you'll have a yeshiva in Pittsburgh. That was what he said to him. Excuse me if I just insert this. Go ahead, 25 years later, when we came to Italy, and my husband said what we want to do here, someone said to him, when grass will grow on the palm of my hand, you'll have that. And he says, oh, thank you so much. He says, that's exactly what they said to my father-in-law. And he has a big, beautiful yeshiva today in Pittsburgh. Okay. In any case, when we came to Pittsburgh, so I was about 4 or 5 years old. And my father started the day school. He called it Yeshiva Chetim. Nobody could even pronounce the name properly. But in any case, and I went to public school. Now in Pittsburgh, there were two men that had beards. One was a Rebbe who was always in his house. He never walked out. And the second one was the Sheikhet who lived upstairs from the butcher shop. So he would go down to Shecht and go up to the house. He didn't walk the streets of it. But my father was looking for kids. He was looking for support. He was looking to be Makar. And he would walk the streets of Pittsburgh. And people would fall out of their cars looking at him to see, they never saw a man with a beard. And I was in public school, in kindergarten. And the kids would ask me, is your father Santa Claus? Who else has a beard? No, my father's not Santa Claus. Is your father 100 years old? I mean, again, who else has it? So it was that was a little bit hard for me because I could say I loved my father desperately, but I was embarrassed to walk down the street with him because people would mamish fall out of their cars looking at us when we would go. Just to get him, the Rebbe was sending Bochrim to Pittsburgh to teach in the yeshiva, so he should have teachers. One of these teachers was Rabbi David Edelman from Springfield. And I remember like today, and excuse me, I am 87 years old, okay? When this happened, I wasn't more than 7 years old. So I'm going back 80 years, and I see it like today. I'm walking up Murray Avenue with Rabbi Edelman, and I go, Rabbi Edelman, aren't you ashamed to walk in the street with your beard? And he looks down at me and he says, ashamed? I'm proud of my beard. And I remember then thinking, this guy is nuts. He doesn't have the brains to be ashamed. He's even proud. So at the time, I wasn't, but those words were so ingrained in my heart. And then I tell you that today, 80 years later, it's as though he said it to me today. Okay? These are all things that had an influence on me without me even realizing. You want me to go on more about my family? Okay. Okay. So I went to public school until third grade. And at that time, my father wrote to the Frierdiker Rebbe. He said, I have no chinuch for my daughter because the yeshiva was only for boys. And the Rebbe said, open it also for girls. And when in Yirtzeh Hashem you'll have enough girls, then you'll divide it and make a boys' school and a girls' school. So I was the first girl in a boys' school, which was why I was always a tomboy. Okay. And I much preferred playing with the boys than with the girls. Okay. So I went to the yeshiva. It was really a day school. I went to day school there. And, okay, so this was, I had, oh, let me tell you something happened. Okay. In 1946, when the war was over, the Polish citizens that had run to Russia were able to leave Russia to go back to Poland. Russians weren't allowed to leave Russia, but the Lubavitchers, they took advantage of this situation. They made Polish papers for about 1,000 Lubavitchers, and they came out of Russia. My husband was a young boy at the time. But they were refugees coming out of Russia. They traveled in New York and they were in Paris. And from Paris, they were going to different places in the world, but they were, for the moment, they were still there. And two Bochrim, were chosen to go to Paris to give them some chizuk to these. One of the two boys was my brother Zalman, who at the time was about 20 years old. My mother was very upset about this because she was afraid he was in yeshiva. He didn't have his smicha yet. And she was afraid if he goes out of yeshiva now, he's not going to go back. And she didn't. Also, she thought, and I'm not going to say who, but she thought that one of the chassidim had decided who these two boys should be that go to her. And she said, why is he sending my son? Let him send his son. All right, so I'm going to describe a scene to you. I'm about 8, 9 years old. I was born in 38. This was in 46. I'm on the floor listening to the radio, to the Lone Ranger. My father and mother are by the telephone. They saw that I was, but they weren't paying attention to me. They did, and I wasn't disturbing them. And my father takes the telephone. In those days, it was like this, with the here and there. And my mother is feeling and crying. She doesn't want to send me. And my father says to my mother, let's hear who's sending them. He's on the phone. And he turns to her and he says, Das kommt von Rebbe. It's the Rebbe that chose him. This is the Frierdiker Rebbe. It's the Rebbe that chose him. How long does it take from when you touch the switch and the light goes on? That's exactly how long it took for my mother to compose herself, and she's getting him ready to go. Those words, das kommt von Rebbe, that was all she needed to hear. And me playing on the floor, listening to the radio, but I also was observing them. Those words, again, I'm repeating them today, 80 years later, as though I heard them today. Das kommt von Rebbe. All right. And I'll tell you, I have a seminary here in Milano, and I talk to the girls, and I always say to the girls, if you want to teach your children, your students, whoever it is, don't preach, live it. If you'll be a living example of what you want your children or your students to be, you'll have an effect on them. No one wants to be preached to. My parents never spoke to us about Rebbe. They lived it. They lived it, and of course, we lived it with them. And again, my brother went off to Europe and so on and so forth. It took 6 months until they then didn't fly. They went by boat until they got it. It's not important. What was important was my mother's reaction to the words, das kommt von der Rebbe. It's coming from the Rebbe. Okay, let's go a little bit further. This was the first year of the Nisias. All right, first of all, before we go to that, when Yud Shvat happened, it happened on a Shabbos. First of all, my brother and my sister, my older brother and my older sister, were Chassan and Kala, not to each other, were Chassan and Kala at the same time. And my brother was getting married in Kislev. So my father wanted my sister to get married in Adar. But the Frierdiker Rebbe said no, she should get married also in Kislev. So this Sunday, my brother got married in New York, and next week my sister got married in the day of the Chasana. We were all in New York, obviously. We went in on Yechidus to the Frierdiker Rebbe, and so I was 11 years old at the time. I remember very clearly being on Yechidus by the Frierdiker Rebbe. My sister adored the Rebbe. She was such a chassid of the Rebbe. She was in New York. She learned in Beis Yaakov, and she would come to New York. She would come to Crown Heights, and to her, the Rebbe was. Anyway, I remember when we were there on Yechidus, and the Rebbe spoke. His lashon was very hard, and my father stood opposite him and repeated word for word what he said, so that he should see that my father understood. Okay, when the Yechidus was over, we went out. My sister was jumping for joy. I hadn't noticed, but the Rebbe had gone like this to my sister, and she came closer to him, and he spoke to her. And she didn't need anyone to explain his words to her. She understood as he spoke. So when she came out, she was jumping for joy that she had understood the Rebbe without anyone having to tell her. And what had the Rebbe told her? He had spoken to her about the importance of covering your hair, because the girls getting married then did not automatically start covering their hair. She had already ordered her sheitel. There was no problem. But I can't forget the way she jumped for joy just because she understood what the Rebbe said to her. Okay, just to finish off this little thing, we went down the corridor.
Wait, could you just tell us who your sister married?
My sister is Kenny Darren. She's with her husband in Elam. My sister, she was a principal in Pittsburgh, very well known. She was just a very super woman, very, very super. Anyone that was her student can't get over it and can't stop talking about her. In any case, we went down the hall. At the end of it, there was a living room with a big dining room table. The Rebbetzin Chamadina was sitting there. I remember her also. And she offered everybody cake.
Wait, so for those that don't know who the Rebbetzin Chamadina is, could you tell us?
The Rebbetzin Chamadina was the wife of the Rebbe.
The previous Rebbe.
I'm sorry?
The Frierdiker Rebbe.
The Frierdiker Rebbe, absolutely. Anyway, she offered him. And then she asked me, would you like another piece? And I said, yes. And everybody burst out laughing, and I was so embarrassed. Okay, this passed. The following week, we went after my brother's wedding. We went to, Yeah. All right. I want to. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. My sister got married the following week, and then this was Kislev, Tevis Shvat, not even 2 months, and it was the Stalkus. My sister was devastated. My whole family. I didn't understand enough to cry or not or whatever. But I could see what was happening around me. A few months
So
later,
could you just explain what histalkus means for those?
what means?
Could you explain what histalkus means?
Stalkus means that the Rebbe's neshama returned to its source. That's it. And so, obviously, everybody was very sad about it. I can't say that I was. The only thing there was that I heard my father cry desperately when he found out, and that was something I couldn't forget. But in any case, I wanted to get to a complete different thing. About 2, 3 months after the Histalkus, they were talking about getting someone else in the place of the Rebbe, and they were discussing who it should be because the Rebbe had two sons-in-law. Someone said one, some said the other. And I remember my sister crying, and she says, how can you forget so quickly that you're just already 2, 3 months after the passing of the first, that they're already thinking of another, having someone to take his place. And my father explained to her, it's not a matter of, it's not a matter of forgetting. He says, Rebbe is a continuation. My father, as a small boy, when he was about 12 years old, before Bar Mitzvah, a very big chassid, Rebbe de Masmed, brought him to Lubavitch. He didn't even get for a boy to become a student in Lubavitch. He had to take a test. My father didn't have to take a test because Rebbe de Masmed brought him. So he was there by the Rebbe Rashab. The Rebbe Rashab and the Rebbe Rashab's son, which was then the next Rebbe, he was a younger man. So when the Rebbe Rashab would say a mimer, my father said like this, when the Rebbe would say a mimer, the Rebbe would stand opposite him and repeat it. And I go, which Rebbe? Because he always said Rebbe, never said Rebbe Rashab, Rebbe. So he explained to my sister, it's not getting a new Rebbe. It's a hemshech. It's a continuation. It's like the same thing. It's one thing. You're not, it from the Alter Rebbe to the Mittel Rebbe to the Rebbe Tzemach. It's all one continuation. Okay, my sister, what could she do? This was the this was the reality. Okay, the following year, the Rebbe took on the Nesias. He accepted to be the Rebbe. He accepted it on Yud Shvat, on the anniversary of the passing of the Friedrich Rebbe. That was Yud Shvat. Rosh Chodesh Adar, 3 weeks later, my second brother got married. And this was the first wedding where the Rebbe was the Mesader Kedushin as Rebbe. He had been Mesader Kedushin before, but now from when he took on the Rebbe. So, of course, it was very exciting. And he came to the Kabbalah's Panim to the beginning. He was there by the Kabbalah's Panim. When they finished the Kabbalah's Panim, they were getting ready to go to the Chuppah. The Rebbe says to my father, oh, where's the Chuppah? Is it going to be inside, outside? So my father showed him it's going to be inside. In those days, they made the Chuppah inside in the hall. And the Rebbe says, well, I got married outside, and I'm very happy with my shidduch. My father understood immediately. And it was middle of February, snow, cold, and it wasn't like if you prepared, they grabbed the chuppah and took it out on the street, on the sidewalk. It was a bahala, it was a mix. We had all been prepared to walk down the aisle, and then there was a aisle, an aisle. There was I don't think I was even at the chuppah because I was 12 years old and everyone was outside. It was a bahala. But the Rebbe, my father said, this is it. And that's exactly what happened. Okay. All right. So we were in New York. And a few days later, my
Could you just tell
sister,
us what your brother's name was?
Rabbi Label Posner. My oldest brother was Rabbi Zalman Posner, and who was quite famous and wrote beautiful articles. He was very, very good speaker and so on and so forth. My brother Label was an introvert more than my brother Zalman, but also very Chassidish and very devoted to the Rebbe, and he was a very good example for the yeshiva bochum and so on and so forth. Super. Okay. All right. So he got married, and we were in New York, obviously. And my sister, Kenny, who was, so enamored of the Frierdiker Rebbe, she had a yechidus with the Rebbe. Okay. After she had this yechidus, my brother Zalman was married to a Kazanovsky that lived in Bensonhurst. Okay, so I'm going to describe you this scene. We were in the Kazanovsky home in Bensonhurst. That is, I was then 12 years old. I was there, but they saw that I was there, but no one was paying any attention to me. My sister was telling about she had yichidus, and obviously she was taken over by the Rebbe, with it. And she's describing her yichidus to my brother Zalman. And she says, and I realized the Yechidus was over, but I didn't want to go out. So the Rebbe spoke maybe another minute. I'll say a long time, a minute and a half. My brother Zalman. What? The Yechidus is over? And you didn't go out? So she started to cry. Such a chet. She did something so terrible. So here's the scene. My sister is crying because my brother is yelling at her. My sister-in-law, in other words, my brother's wife, is yelling at him and saying, leave her alone. It's none of your business. Why are you? And I'm watching this circle. My sister's crying because my brother's yelling at her. My sister-in-law is yelling at my brother because he's yelling at my sister. And what did she do? She overstayed her yechidus by a minute or a minute and a half. Again, this is a scene. I was 12 years old, and I'm 87 now, which makes it 75 years ago. And I see it in front of me. Adults, married. And what was the problem? She overstayed her yichidus by 2 minutes. Okay. What kind of an impression can that make on me? If I tell you that I relive it as though it's happening. Okay, it's like I said. These are the things that make. So to me, being the Rebbe's chassid, being the Rebbe's shliach, it was the dream of my life. It was the dream of my life. Okay, where do you want me to go now? What would you like me to tell you?
I just don't want you to stop. I love all these stories. Okay, so now you're 12 years old, and walk us through your brothers and your sisters get married. They move out of the house. You're the youngest now. You're the only child.
I have a younger sister. I have there are 6 of us, 2 brothers and a sister, and then a brother and 2 sisters.
So who?
And
Tell us a little bit about your who's your little sister and your brother married to? Your younger sister.
no. Hold on. My oldest brother Zalman married a Kazanovsky from Bensonhurst. My brother Label, who married a year later, he didn't marry a Lubavitcher girl, although became a chassid like you can't imagine. She had been in Beis Yaakov together with my older sister, and that was how he knew her. My sister had introduced them, and like I said, at that wedding, that was the wedding that was made, and she came from a Yekishe family. Yekis are very proper and very orderly and very fine. Well, when they started to get this chuppah down and out on the street, I have my fancy aunts, great aunts. Oh, the bride is going to get pneumonia. Oh, you can't do this. And the mother of the bride, the Yekete, she said, I am a Yekete, and if I accept this, so can you. And that way she shut everybody's mouth up. Okay? This is the kind of family that this girl came from. All right? So that's my second brother, Label. He was married to Tirza. Her name was Tirza. And okay, then my sister Kenny got married the year before. She married Yecheskel Darren. Okay. Well, I always thought that my brother-in-law made a mistake by marrying my sister, that he should have waited for me and married me. But I guess he figured he wasn't going. Once when I said that, he says, yeah, they would have to salt me, to put me under salt, and I should wait till she's ready to get married because I'm 8 years younger than my sister. Okay. Anyway, but it was a beautiful, beautiful marriage, and we adored him. That was this wedding. Then, so there's my two brothers and sister. Then between these three, 5 years difference, then my third brother. But I got married before my brother. I got married, and the following year, my brother, not even a year, it was less than a year. He got married. And my youngest sister, these four, with their spouses, have gone where they went. My youngest sister is Sarah Rivka Sasonkin. She lives in Eretz Yisrael. The Rebbe sent them as right after the Chasana. He sent them to Eretz Yisrael because the Rebbe was a Sadr Yedushin by their Chasana after the Rebbe stopped being the Sadr Yedushin. So it was an exception, and he didn't want an Ayin Hara should become a problem there. He sent them to Eretz Yisrael the week of their Sheva Brachas. Okay, and she is living also near Afula in Ta'anach, Moshav Ta'anach. She's very, very, very special. I realize I'm a little bit biased, but she's also very, very smart, beautiful, and she's. So it's just right now. It's just the two of us, of the 6 children that are here. Where do I go now?
Okay, so how did you meet your husband?
Ha.
And how old were you when you met him? And how old was
What?
he? How old were you when you met him?
I was 18. I was 18 or 19. I probably was in 19 already. But when we got married, I was 19. When we got married in Thomas, maybe I was 18. All right. Okay. All right. What happened? It was, this is very funny. I don't know if it's, but I'll tell you, you can see what you want to do with it. Rabbi Chadikov, the Rebbe's secretary, had a list of names of Bochrim. Have you ever heard this little story that there was once a Gvir in Poland? He was looking for a shidduch for his daughter, and he went to the yeshiva, and he looked around, and he looked at one boy. He says, I don't like you already. Probably you'll marry my daughter. Okay. Anyway, so my parents, this was very interesting. From when I was 16 years old, every time my mother went in on Yechidus, that I would say, what's doing with a shidduch for your daughter? She's so young. She's only 16 years old. Next time she goes in, what's doing with your daughter about a shidduch? And she says, she's still in school. She's not. It was so funny. The Rebbe could remember everything. The only thing he couldn't remember was how old I was. He kept asking. All right. And I made a little bit of a cheshbon years and years and years later that when the Rebbe started asking my mother about that, my husband had just come to America then. He was just there. But anyway, okay. I went out with 2 boys before my husband. And from their side, it was, I didn't say, first of all, before, I didn't go out with anyone before asking the Rebbe. So everything went through the Rebbe. So the first boy, nothing happened. And then the second boy, from his side, he said, no, okay. So again, the Rebbe is asking my mother what's doing with the shidduch. Okay, so my mother and my father, they're talking to Rabbi Chadakov, the secretary, and he had a list of Bochrim that were ready for shidduchim. And they would go down that list, and every time they would come to my husband's name, my father would go over there. He would jump over that name. My mother's very observant. She says, why do you always jump over that name? Why don't you ever stop at that name? So he tells her when he would come to New York from Pittsburgh, he would go straight to the yeshiva. He didn't go anyplace else, my father. And my husband, as a bacher, especially, but even afterwards, he was a big Fabrenger, big Fabrenger. So my father
Wait, I
comes
just want to
into,
interrupt. My father used to bring with your husband through the nights, hours and hours. He was very close to your husband, and that's why I was so excited to interview you because it has
okay.
to talk to me to talk to, this is very exciting. Okay.
Anyway, okay. So my father came to the yeshiva to 770. It was like about 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And my husband was Fabrenger. And my father's telling my mother that he came, and my husband says to my father, "Oh, Reb Shalom, you have a television set?" My father told him, "You have a television?" My sister said it was them talking about not having television sets. And my father says to himself, "I hate you already. You'll probably end up marrying my daughter." So he told that to my mother. My brilliant mother says that's not a reason to jump over his name. What I must tell you though, they never told me this. Had my father told me this story, I wouldn't have gone out with him, that's for sure. I found this out after when I was married about 6 months already, when there was nothing to discuss. But okay, so we went out Wednesday evening before your chat. I love today when I see these resumes. A resume, the names of this and this one, and what they did and where they went and what you want. I'm going out with him tonight. I'm talking to Rabbi Jacobson, who was the chef. I'm talking to Rabbi Jacobson. I said, Rabbi Jacobson, what's his name? I didn't know the guy's name. Gershon Mendel. Gershon, never heard. Rabbi Jacobson, he speaks English, yeah? Oi, Bassie, you're such a chacham. I didn't ask you if I'm a chachama. I turned to my friend. I go, Benny, he doesn't speak English. Okay. He came to pick me up, and we were in Borough Park, and we just went walking. He didn't want to go into the park because it was dark already, but there was a bench outside of the park on the on the sidewalk. Okay, we sat there. He took out a cigarette. In those days, everybody was smoking cigarettes. I had no problem with that. But as he was smoking, the smoke was coming towards me, which I happened to like, by the way. But he didn't know that. He got up and he went and he sat on the other side of me so that the smoke shouldn't go in my face. And I thought, wow, for a Chassidish Bocher to to be so sensitive to a woman, to a girl, like, okay. When I came back, I tell my friend Benny, because I was staying by her house, I said, he's a very nice guy, but I'm not going to marry him. I was sure I wasn't going to marry him. Okay. This was Wednesday night. Motzei Shabbos was the Yudfrat Fabrengen. In those days, the Fabrengen was just in the 770. It wasn't what it is today. And it was in the back of 770, there was like a big sukkah. So the men were in front, and in the back, we stood there. All right. I'm standing there, and all of a sudden, the Rebbe goes, Harav Reb Yeshemendel Garelik. Hey, wait, that's the guy I went out with, but I couldn't even tell anyone. Oh my gosh, like, why is he calling? The Rebbe should, okay. After the Fabrengen, my father tells me that after the Rebbe called him, Geshemendel, and gave him l'chaim, or I don't know if he gave him l'chaim or liquor or whatever it was, he called over my father. Because my father was standing up front, right in back of Rabbi Garelik. So I didn't hear that, and he didn't say it out loud. And he said to my father, you let two go by, don't let the third one go by. I said, what? First of all, the two boys that I went out with, they said no to me. I didn't say no to them. And the Rebbe knew this. So it's not as though we let them go by. They passed by, they went. Anyway, and now he says, and don't let the third one go by. So I said to my father, go right to him. Go make the engagement. Go ahead. My father says, no, you have to want this. And we're not making anything. Okay. So Sunday, we went out again. Then I went back to Pittsburgh Monday. Tuesday, he calls my father. My husband calls my father. The Rebbe is sending him to Pittsburgh for Shabbos to give over the Yushvat Fabrengen to the Chassidim in Pittsburgh. Never happened before and never happened after. My father said, the Rebbe is sending you, come. He didn't want to invite him. And okay, he came. Mrs. Nadoff, Miriam Nadoff, she knew her. We were very close. We were neighbors. We were very, very close friends. I think, and she knew that he had come for that. And he came to school Friday, and wherever he went, I hid. Go out. She would send me out and go out. Go out. He should find me. You should see me. In any case, okay. Friday night after when in Pittsburgh, he stayed by a young couple that were also friends of his and friends of ours. Okay. Friday night, they came over. I visit Friday night. Who comes over for dinner night? And somehow everybody disappeared and just the two of us were left there. Okay, so that was our next date. Shabbos, we babysat. My brother Zalman was living in Pittsburgh. We were there a whole day. Shabbos and Shabbos Nacht. We babysat. Sunday morning, again, we babysat for my sister. And then, at that time, he proposed to me. How did he propose to me? He said, I found what I was looking for. And I said, I'm not looking, I couldn't even imagine what I was looking for. Had you asked, I didn't know. So I said, I have to ask the Rebbe. I'll ask the question. So he said to me, okay, but where do you want to live after you get married? And I said, wherever the Rebbe will send us. To me, that was the most natural answer. And I didn't, after we were married, when we were discussing, different things when we were, he said to me, when you answered me, wherever the Rebbe will send us, had you thrown a bucket of ice water on me, you couldn't have shocked me more. But the Shasma, I say he didn't show anything. He just said to me, but the Rebbe isn't sending. If the Rebbe doesn't send, because he was afraid I'm going to say I want to live in Pittsburgh. And he wanted to make it very clear. He came to America to be near the Rebbe. At that time, he was a mashpia in New Jersey. As far as New Jersey, he was willing to go, because if the Rebbe was fabrenging, you get into the car and in 3/4 of an hour, you're there. He wasn't going to go further than New Jersey. I knew nothing of this. And it's a good thing I didn't, because had I known such a thing, I would have said, goodbye, Charlie. Okay. He went back to New York. And I told him, I said, in 3 weeks from now, Purim time, my friend, this friend Benny, is getting married. I'm going to come to New York and I'll give you an answer. He said, yes, but if you had the answer before, will you tell me before? I said, yes, I'll tell you. But I didn't have the answer before. I wrote to the Rebbe 3 times. And each time I wrote, my head says yes, but my heart says no. I don't feel anything. I don't see it. Anyway, I said, but if the Rebbe says this is the right one, no problem. The Rebbe wouldn't. And the last letter, the Rebbe answered me, see him again, and you'll be able to evaluate your feelings better. I was nervous. I was crazy. I was just, this was Tanis Esther, Motzah Tanis Esther. I was supposed to meet him in Rabbi Jacobson's house. I go to Rabbi Jacobson. I say, Rabbi Jacobson, I told you to write to him. Why are you people making me crazy? He didn't. He's trying to calm me down. Anyway, I walk into the dining room. My husband was sitting at the table, and I just took one look at him. I said, just one look. He didn't say anything. He just looked at me. I looked at him, and I go. I was thinking to myself, are you crazy? This is exactly what you want. Had you asked me what I want, I had no idea. But that was the thought that came to me. this is exactly what you want. And so and we became chassan kala. Without going into too many details, my husband had a hard time getting to America. His chaverim, his friends, got here 3 years before him. All right, let me tell you in two words, otherwise you won't understand. When they got to Eretz Yisrael in 1948, my husband was about 16 years old at the time, 16, 18. And there was a, there was a, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting it. He was trying to talk the Yidden into not being Yidden. No,
A missionary.
Missionary.
Your daughter shared the story, but not everyone heard it. So you'll say it, and then we're going to link your daughter's class on the description of the class.
What class? What class?
Well, on the YouTube channel, when people are able to watch it.
Let me tell you. Anyway, there was a missionary in Lud, and this was just after the war. The Yidden, just after the trauma of the Shoah, and so he had fertile ground. So my husband and another broker grabbed hold of this, and I don't know what they did to him. So my husband was put into jail in Eretz Yisrael for 3 days. He came home so proud. He said to his father, Tata, I was also, because his father, Rebbe, in Russia was put into jail more than once. I was also in jail. He was proud of the fact. And his father says, yeah, Eichmer jail, that's also here in Eretz Yisrael. But nothing. But he had a police record. And because he had a police record, he couldn't get a visa to come to America. And all his chaverim came to America. And for 3 years, he went from office to office, from politician to politician, trying to get permission to come to America. So when he finally got there, he wasn't going to move an inch away from the Rebbe. And it's a good thing I didn't know that, because had I known it, I would have said there's nothing to talk about. But when he asked me, where do I want to live? He thought I'm going to say Pittsburgh. And I said, no, wherever the Rebbe will send us. And if he doesn't send us, and if he doesn't send us, I understood a woman follows her husband. Yeah. Okay, so he felt calm about that.
And where did you get married?
We got married, Dalet Tammuz. We got married in Tammuz. Also, why then? Because I was teaching in Pittsburgh, and I said, I can't leave the school. It's not like New York where you leave and you get a substitute. There are no substitutes. So school was over, I think, like the 15th of June, and we got married the 22nd of June. I said, I have to first finish but it wasn't so long. We became Chassan Kala Purim, which is Adar, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, and Tammuz. It was 3.5 months. And okay. But
you got married in Pittsburgh?
Oh, yes. Oh, well, what happened was, obviously, my husband wanted the Rebbe to be Misader Gedushin. I also did, but I explained to my husband that the Balabatim in Pittsburgh they were upset with my parents. Oh, when you need money for the yeshiva, you come to us. But when you have a simcha, you take it to New York. So I said to him, just for the sake of the yeshiva, we have to make the chasna in Pittsburgh. But he wanted the Rebbe to be Misader Gedushin, which I also wanted. What do we do? 100% I'm not, but about 99% it was the Rebbe's idea, because none of us would have thought of such a thing. 2:00 in the afternoon, our chuppah was in New York. Our Kabbalah's Panim was in Rabbi Jacobson's house. Downstairs.
Which Rabbi Jacobson was this?
He lived on Montgomery Street. Okay. I know. Everybody knew him. Rabbi Jacobson, he was from the house, from the yeshiva, and he was, anyway, so he was in his house. Also, they were very close to my parents, the Jacobsons, and his wife and my mother's sister or sisters. No, it was in any case. So the Kabbalah's Panim was in his house. Downstairs, the men, and upstairs, the women. And then the chassan came up, made the Badeken, and then we went to 770. The chuppah was there. The Rebbe came out, and he was Masad Kedushin. And the Cheder Yichud was in 770. And by the way, we had a very romantic Cheder HaYichud because this was before it was built, that it was just a driveway. And the Bachrim knew that we were going to have the Chasana in Pittsburgh because in the morning, 2 cars of boys went to Pittsburgh. They couldn't be at the chuppah. And the other Bachrim that were in New York knew they weren't going to be there. So they were dancing under the window of the room of where we were and singing Chasam Kala. I remember standing in that Cheder HaYichud and hearing, it was like being serenaded. And I was thinking, wow, it doesn't get better than this. Anyway, after this, after the chuppah, we went back to the Jacobsons. I took off my wedding gown. We were about 12 people in the plane. A few Bochum came talking with my husband, and we flew to Pittsburgh. I put my wedding gown on again, and that night was our wedding in Pittsburgh. And the whole wedding, the mechitza between the husband, the men, and the women was the table, which was a buffet, and with big flowers in it. This was like to the mechitza. It was all buffet. It was not a sit-down meal. The Rebbe even said then, maybe this will break this. I'm going back 67 years. And the Rebbe then already wanted to break the idea of the big chasanas. He thought maybe others will, in any case, you know better than I what happened with the chasanas, all right? In any case, so it was all a buffet. The whole chasana was a buffet. And then
the Rebbe knew you were having a buffet?
What?
The Rebbe knew you were having a buffet at your wedding.
He knew exactly what, he knew everything.
And he liked that?
Did I like that?
Did he like that, the Rebbe?
Well, let me finish. We made it the buffet, and there was everything like meat and fish, everything on buffet. This side was the women's side, that side was the men's side. There was big flowers in the middle that divided. And then we washed. We had everything was made by my mother. There was no what do you call it, restaurant or anything in Pittsburgh. And we had challah to wash with. We had gefilte fish that my mother made. We had kampot, which is dessert. And we made sheva brachas. That was our sheva. That was the suda at the chasana, so we should have sheva brachas. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. And the Rebbe was so happy about it because we didn't go into Meshug and Nechevis because of it, to have all those problems. In any case, okay, and then after a week, we went back to New York and we were waiting. So we didn't know, we weren't getting. All we knew was the Rebbe's secretary would talk to my husband and ask him, and tell him he has to talk to a lawyer and get his passport in order. Get it, because he didn't have with all the things that he went through. Only because of that, we knew we'd be going overseas somewhere, because you don't need a passport if you're going to be staying in the States, no matter where you are. But no one told us anything, and we knew nothing. We're just waiting to see what's going to happen with this passport and where we're going to go and when we're going to go and what's going to be. So I said to my husband, we were married 2 months. First of all, as soon as we were married Gimel Tammuz. After Yud Beis Tammuz, we were sent to Gan Yisrael in New York. My husband for learning teacher, me, I don't know what, okay. And because we were sort of like in the middle, we didn't know where we were just hanging in the middle. And I said to my husband, I said, look, obviously we were going to go overseas. We don't know where or what.
But before you do that, what happened to his job?
Wait a second.
Okay.
We'll obviously be going overseas. We can't, we do. I said, my parents hardly know you. Come home a little bit. Let them get to know you. No, he says. If we're going away, I have to stay near the Rebbe. He can't miss a minute by being. He says, you go home. today, when I hear, even after that, whenever I hear we talk about Shana Rishena, your Shana Risheni, you're together, and Shana Rishena, I would laugh my head off. I would say, sure, Shana Risheni, we were married 2 months, and my husband sent me home already. Why? Because he was not going to come. Okay. Rosh Hashanah, that Rosh Hashanah, my father went to New York, and he comes home after Rosh Hashanah, and he brings my husband with him. So everybody's trying to figure out how long will my husband wait. Will he stay till Simchas Torah? No, he'll stay till Erev Sukkot. And I was quiet because I knew he wasn't staying for anything. The next day he was going back. And that's exactly what he did. More than one day, he was not going to stay away from the Rebbe. Okay, he went back. And I was home. He would call me every day. Okay. And one day he calls me and he says, by the way, I happened to see this Rabbi Chadakov, the secretary, and he said to me, by the way, if you want to know where you're going to Europe. Europe? Oh, where Europe? What difference is in Italy? He said it as though, I didn't even know that there were Jews in Italy. The only Italians I knew were the shoemakers. Okay, I hang up. I go into the living room, the dining room. My father's working on his yeshiva papers. I say, Pa, the Rebbe is sending us to Italy. That was like saying going to the moon, believe me. He says, the Rebbe is sending you for Gesundheit. Okay. I go into the kitchen. Maybe I'll get a rise out of my mother. I said, Ma, the Rebbe is sending us to Italy. The Rebbe is sending you go. This is the way I was brought up. Okay. So we're going to go to Italy. But my husband officially had a job. He was working in Newark, in the yeshiva. He was a mashpia in yeshiva. And Rabbi Gurari, the Rebbe's brother-in-law, was the menahel, or I don't know what was. So he had to first leave that job before he could go to another job. So what does he do? So he went to New Jersey and he's talking to the Rashag, and who did not want to let him go. And my husband says, yes, but otherwise, if I stay, I need a raise. And he said a ridiculous sum of money, I know $2,000-3,000 a month, which then was I don't know what. And of course, he says, no, I'm not. That's okay if you're not going to pay me. Yeah. So he got relieved of his job, and he was able to leave the States. And this was all against what he wanted to do. But
Like
he never said.
he wanted to stay in Newark.
He wanted to stay next to the Rebbe. Like I said, it's good I didn't know all of this.
Right, but once the Rebbe said he wanted to send him, he understood that that's where he.
Not only once, he knew that I was writing to the Rebbe, send us wherever you want, send us wherever you want. And he never even said a word about, no, but I don't, another, Chas v'shalom, never. And once it was said to Italy, that's Italy. No, even more, let me explain to you. Okay, we knew we were going to Italy. We didn't know when or what. Did
he also ask Rabbi Rashag to, I read this in the gem, where your son wrote that the Rashag, he asked him to fire him. In that case, please write a letter that you're firing me.
Truthfully, I don't know those things. I know that he asked for a raise that wasn't possible, and so he was automatically fired.
Right.
If he asked to have that, I don't know. I can't. My kids know things that I don't know. I can't. It just what later on when I thought about it, because I was so amazed knowing how much he wanted to stay by the Rebbe, and still he did it with such ahava, and he did it with devotion. It was unbelievable. But wait till I tell you. Okay, so by the same time that we were supposed to go to Italy, Rabbi Yitzchak Groner, was supposed to go to Australia with his family. They were married. They had 6 children already. We were just married. He's going to Australia and we're going to Italy. So he and my husband made up, you know what? We'll go right after you to Kislev. So we'll be here for the Fabrenges. Okay. About 2 weeks before Yutas Kislev, Rabbi Chadakov sees my husband and he says, "Oh, by the way, if you want to know, you're Italians." My husband calls me up. He says, "If we're Italians, we're going now. We're not waiting for Yutas Kislev." I said, "Give me a chance to just make my suitcase and get, okay." But my husband did not have a visa for Italy. He was able to get a visa just for Paris, for France. Okay, so we went to France, and from there,
So before you left, did you meet with the Rebbe?
hold on. Obviously, before we left, we had a yechidus. And what I remember of that yechidus was at a certain point, the Rebbe said, "Aber tut es besimcha v'tuv leivav," but you're doing this all with simcha. And I was like, I turned to my husband like, we didn't express ourselves enough to that because we had written thanking the Rebbe so much about it. And I was so upset that the Rebbe should even have a suffix if we were doing it besimcha uvetuv levov. But okay, but that was it. I just that was it. But that was a yechidus, and the Rebbe came out when we went. He came out. He stood at the door and watched while we left. Until we left, it was like he accompanied us just till the door. Okay, we came to Paris, and we were there about a week. Rabbi Garelik from Paris was supposed to make my husband's visa, and we were with the Lubavitchers. We're living in, they called it Hotel Modern. Wasn't very modern, but all the Lubavitchers there. We were there, and obviously Shabbos they all verbranged, and I was in the room, and my husband comes into the room and he's crying. I said, "Why are you crying?" He says, "When I think that I'm here and the Rebbe is there, brum," he starts crying again. And he said to me then, "A time will come and I will go to the Rebbe every month." I mean, this was 1958. Every month. I mean, Bechlal, Shluchim were allowed to come back once in 2 years. And he's going to go every month. So I said to him, "Why do you want something that can't be?" My dear friend, you can't say to my husband something like that. Because if he wants something, it will be. And it was. Obviously, the first 10 years, he went every year, which was also, I had said to him, I said, "I have no problem with your going to New York as often as you want. But if we lose the shlichus because of it," because I had heard of one shlich who was running around a little bit too much, and the Rebbe made it with shlichus. I said, "If we lose the shlichus because of it, that I'll never forgive." So when he would go to New York, he would call me up and tell me he saw the Rebbe, and the Rebbe went like this or the Rebbe went like that. But before I get to that, okay, we were in Paris for a week. Then we went to Milano. We came to Milano, Yutas Kislev. We came to Milano. 2 days later, I turned 20. Before we left New York, Rabbi Chadakov said to me, "Start with a school. That way your students become your collaborators." And I thought, my gosh, I'll have to wait a lifetime for that. And he also told me he told me two things. One thing, start with a school. That way your students will become your collaborators. And the second thing was that if there are women that are already in menopause that haven't gone to the mikveh, I should explain to them that now, if they go even one time, they can make up for all those times that they didn't go. I was so young. I wasn't yet 20, and he was giving me, like, I couldn't realize what he wanted me. But later on, I realized why, and so on and so on. In any case,
I just
okay.
interrupt because the mikvah, and if you could expand on it, is the only mitzvah that you could retroact in the
Is
Torah.
the only
Only mitzvah that you could retroact, that you can reap the benefits
makeup.
if you, yeah.
In any case, he gave me these two things, two missions. One to start the school, and second, okay, we came to Italy. We were a young married couple, only married 6 months. So they took us, the Balavatim the ones that had brought us. We knew nothing who brought us. We didn't know that there was a request, but nothing. We all found all these things out later. Anyway, so this family, of the ones that had asked the Rebbe to send us, they wanted to buy us a cute apartment, 2 bedrooms, living room,
Are you
kitchen.
able to say their names?
I should say their name? Yes. Family Zippel. The Zippels, there were 4 brothers, and they were furriers, and they also had an office in New York. So the Sheikhet, Rebbe Yankov Gansberg, spoke to Mr. Zippel. He said, "Look, you go to New York anyway. Why don't you go to the Rebbe?" And he convinced him to have a kesher with the Rebbe, which was wonderful. And there was a Rav, Rabbi Pedalov, who came to the same time as Rabbi Yankov Gamzer, as the Sheikhet. But Rabbi Pedalov was an elderly Rav. He had a one and only son, and he wanted to go to him in Australia in his old age. And so he left Milano. So Mr. Zippel went to the Rebbe. The Rebbe knew that Rabbi Pedalov had left Milano. And Mr. Zippel said, "Please send us a Rav, but send us a young one that can have a Safa Mishutefes, that can have a language with the youth, because the youth were very separated from the reality of Yiddishkeit." This was 14 short years after the Shoah, and the Jews living here, especially the Ashkenazi Jews that went through the Shoah, to them, this was a different world. You couldn't live now the way you lived in the shtetl. In the shtetl, they all had payas. Now none of them had payas. In the shtetl, Shabbos was they were keeping things, but not like it was a different world for them. And the youth, for sure, were completely in a different thing. Okay, so we came. They wanted to buy us this cute little apartment for a young couple just married. And my husband looks at it. No, he doesn't want. Okay. So then they take us to an apartment that belonged to them. One of the 4 brothers had lived in that apartment for years with his wife and children. They moved out just a few months ago. And knowing that they were going to move out, the apartment was very, very, it wasn't upkept properly. It was in very bad condition. And there was nothing, just 4 walls. There wasn't even nothing, not a refrigerator, nothing, zero, zero, zero. And the place was in horrible condition, but it was big, 250 meters. There was 5 bedrooms. There was a big living room, dining room, and another room there attached. A kitchen, a corridor that the kids could go with their bicycles down the corridor. My husband walks around this apartment. He says, "This is ufaratzo, Dick." The Rebbe then was saying, ufaratzo, break all barrier. This is, and we moved into that horrible apartment. And of course, and the Zippels, they had said, "You know what, move in now, just temporarily. We'll look for something else," which we never did. But slowly, it became home. And because it was so big, we were able to, do a lot of things there. And we were there we got there, I told you, Yotzes Kislev, Teve, Shvat, we made a Fabrengi, Yud Shvat, and then Purim. We're only there 2-3 months. They bought for us 2 nice tables, 2 long tables, and 50 chairs. They couldn't figure out, what are we going to do with 50 chairs? Well, we started to make one for bringing after another. Anyway, just let me tell you this. Purim, after the Fabrengen, after everybody left, only Mr. Zippel was left, and my husband, who had taken a little bit of L'chaim. He wanted to go back to New York. We were there 2 months. He wanted to go back to New York, but he didn't have enough money for a ticket. So he wanted to ask Mr. Zippel to give him a ticket. And I was desperate. This is scandalous. I mean, they'll go crazy. Anyway, so my husband is talking to Mr. Zippel. In Yiddish, obviously, but I'm going to say it in English. "I want to tell you something." And I knew what he wanted to say. He wanted to ask him for a ticket. And I have to be careful because he's the Rav. I can't just, behave, And I poke my head in, and he sees me up, and he says to me, "You think I shouldn't say it?" And I go, "I think you shouldn't say it." Okay. I want to tell you something. I want to tell you something. And again, I poke in my head, and he says, "You think I shouldn't say it?" I think better not. Okay, after 3 times, Mr. Zippel just got up and he got the message. He left. Thank God. The next day, Mr. Zippel's niece, who was friendly with me, tells me that her uncle came home and he tells them the Rav wanted to tell me that the Rebbetzin is pregnant, but she wouldn't let him. Oh, I was so grateful. I was so grateful. In 10,000 years, my husband wouldn't tell him I was pregnant. But let him think that's okay. Let him think that, because had he known what he really wanted to ask, he probably would have thrown us out. Not just, Anyway, okay. So this was Purim. He didn't go. Pesach. He just couldn't take it anymore. Pesach, he has to go back. Okay, he got one of the Tzippels to get him a ticket. Imagine. Okay, but for the first days of Pesach, we were in Milano because he did all the afternoon, Shilas, and he's leaving Sunday night. Sunday, he had to make some phone calls, but the phone was broken. Never happened before. So we went to Rebbe Yankiv, to the Gansbergs, to the Sheikh, to make those few phone calls. So he was sitting in the room with Rebbe Yankiv, and I was with Mrs. Gansberg in another room. And all of a sudden, I hear my husband, ha, 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 ha. Oh my gosh, he doesn't laugh like that unless I go in. He was completely with wine. It was Pesach, Rebbe Yankiv, huh? Oh my gosh, I couldn't let Mr. Zippel come see him like this. This is terrible. So first I called up Mr. Zippel. I said, "Mr. Zippel, the Rav won't be able to go today. He's not feeling so good. He'll go tomorrow. No, I'll send you the doctor." No, 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 no. Don't send me the doctor. I know how to take care of this illness. Okay. Till I got him into a taxi, till I got him to the house, till I got him into bed. He should go to sleep. Midnight, he wakes up. What am I doing here? Why aren't I on the plane? I say, Gershman, you were very sick. I couldn't let you go. Well, my dear friend, if he did, I asked for all that. I said, if he didn't divorce me, then he never will. I should have let him. I should have. Okay, he's going tomorrow. Okay, Mr. Zippel is supposed to come. As he's on the sidewalk, waiting for Mr. Zippel to come pick him up and take him to the airport, the postman came by and gave him a letter from the Rebbe that says he should not go. And he goes, I knew it. He knew he had to get away before that letter could get to him. But once he got the letter, he couldn't go. Okay.
What did the letter say?
The Rebbe said that he should stay and help the Balabatim over the Yom Tif. There are different things. He made it very clear that he should not leave. Okay, so we came there, Kislev, Teves, Shvat, Adar, Nisan, Iyar, Sivan, Tammuz, of 8 months. Can you imagine? 8 months. Okay, he asked me to send. What was good about in August is that it was vacation time in Milano. There was nobody in the city. No one would even know that he went, so practically, All right, in any case, but he didn't want to go without permission. So he had me send a telegram to the Rebbe. You know what a telegram is, huh? Today people don't know what telegrams are. All right, send the telegram and ask for permission for him to go to New York for Chafov. Okay. The answer came Shabbos morning. He was in shul, and the answer came. I was 7 months pregnant already then. And I had to run to give him the answer. The answer was, Im behaskamasa hameleya shel zugosa shitalita. If he has his wife's full haskama, consent, uvisas chazara betucha, and he's sure that he has a visa to come back, bibracha. Okay. It was about 20-minute walk to shul, but I had to go to give it to him as soon as possible. And I tell him, I said, okay, now you have to ask my permission. Nah, he says, you sent the telegram. I have your permission. Okay. Obviously, I was just teasing. I didn't expect him to ask me any permission. I said, but Mendel, it says, and you do not have a visa. He says, you're not reading it properly. It says there, you'll surely have a visa back. I couldn't resist that. I mean, the way I read it with a question mark, which is the way it was written. He read it with an exclamation mark, which is the way he wanted it. But it was just too natural and too beautiful. And I was masking, and he went. He left Motzei Shabbos, and he got there Sunday morning. Tuesday, he went in on Yechidus, and the Rebbe, he didn't speak. He wouldn't speak anything. So the Rebbe knew he wasn't going to get any answers out of him. The Rebbe said to him, write and describe to me the relationship between you and your wife. I have challenged many audiences. I haven't heard of one man or woman that the Rebbe had asked for a description of the relationship between them as husband and wife. Okay. My husband wrote a whole page, and on Thursday he went in on Yechidus. I was too proud to ask him what he wrote, so I have no idea. But he did tell me the last line because the Rebbe was magiyet. The Rebbe fixed it. He wrote, "Efsher loy hayisi tzorech lehaarich kol kach b'ma'alei." Maybe I should not have been so profuse in her praise. Maybe I should not. The Rebbe crossed out the not, the loy. Efsher loy, the Rebbe crossed out. Hayisi tzorech lehaarich, the Rebbe underlined. To be more profuse as possible. Okay, this was Thursday. Sunday morning, the Rebbe's secretary, Rebbe Chadakov, asked him, are you going home today? He said, yes. Are you bringing your wife a present? Yes. What are you bringing her? Cake. There was nothing kosher in Milano. Okay, he knew I was a Nashrita, that I would want cake. So Rebbe Chadakov says, okay, she should eat Gesundheit, but maybe you should get something gold. I said, okay, no problem. And Rabbi Chata says, what do you suggest? My husband didn't have a lot of imagination as far as jewelry is concerned. He already bought me a couple of watches. He says, a watch. Okay. So Rabbi Chata says, can I help you choose it? It was Sunday. The stores were closed. But Rabbi Simpson, who today has a big, beautiful store in Borough Park, a jewelry store, was just starting in business then. And so they called him up and they asked him to bring a suitcase with watches in America's office. And he did. He came. And so there in the America's office, I think there was Rabbi Groner and Rabbi Chadakov and my husband, Rabbi Simpson. You have 4 men, you have 5 opinions. And so everyone said a different watch, this one, that one, that. And then Rabbi Chadakov took all the watches and brought them into the Rebbe. When my husband saw this, he nearly fainted. It never occurred to him that this was all coming from the Rebbe. Rabbi Chadakov came out with the watches, and he said, the Rebbe said, if there's time, the face of this with the band of this. And if there's not enough time, then this watch. And then the Rebbe sent out a machzer for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And he said, and this is my present to her. Believe me, when my husband came home, had I asked him for the moon, he would have walked straight up to get it. He was so amazed by this whole thing about the watch and so on. And as I always say, the biggest women's liberator in history is the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He put the woman on a pedestal, not like the feminists that try to turn themselves into men and to do what the men are doing, even when the men aren't doing it anymore. When a girl said to me, why can't I put on tefillin? I said, does your boyfriend put on tefillin? Does your husband put on tefillin? Why are you asking for what you're not doing even? But yeah, they were. The Rebbe showed the beauty of the woman. And as I always say, and I think you mentioned this, when the Rebbe sends a shliach, he doesn't send a shliach and his wife to do his laundry. He sends a shliach and a shlucha. And if the shliach has a convention once a year, the shlucha has a convention once a year. And if they have a job to do, to be bakarev in their shlichas, the woman's job, many times it's even more than the men's. And the Rebbe gives her all the compliments and all the recognition of what the woman can do and does do. And that is really the beauty of the shluch. Like if I can just, if you want me to finish off with something.
No, I actually have a few more questions, if that's okay.
Oh, okay. Yes, it's definitely okay. And
Yours.
let me just say this. A few years ago, I think it was maybe the year of COVID, I'm not sure. There were 4,000 shluchim at the Kenes HaShluchim. And the shliach that was speaking, he was also thanking the supporters. I mean, you can't do all this without having supporters. And he was thanking them and how great it was that they were doing and how grateful we are to them. And then he finished off. But our greatest supporters that we want to thank are our wives. And spontaneously, 4,000 men stood up and clapped for their wives. I say, where do you find any organization in the world, any kind you want, where men clap for their wives? They'll clap for a big CEO. They'll clap for a beautiful actress. They'll clap for I don't know who you want. But for their wives, only in Chabad. And only because the Rebbe put the woman on the pedestal.
It's true. Okay. So loved hearing everything you said, and I don't want you to stop. So you'll let me know when you have to stop. But your wonderful daughter told me a few points to ask you. So I'm gonna go through it just to make sure we covered everything. She
I'm going to
told
fix it.
she she told me to ask you about Lugano.
Okay. Before leaving New York, the Rebbe had said to my husband, I wasn't there when he said it, it must have been our Yechidus. He said, I heard that there's a city near Milano of Chassidim that don't learn Chassidus. He was talking about Lugano. It was then an English, it was beautiful city, beautiful people, very Chassidish and so on and so forth. Not Chabad, and they were not learning Chassidus, but they never asked my husband to come learn with them. The women, on the other hand, would ask me to come and speak for them. So when I would speak for them, if Chanukah, Purim, or whatever, I would take a sicha, and I would just repeat a sicha for them. So I was becoming very proud of myself. I was learning Chassidus with them in Lugano. Once they asked me to come. It wasn't Chanukah, Purim, or anything. There was no particular thing. A Sunday, and they asked me if I would speak twice, in the afternoon to the girls and in the evening to the women. So big shot me, I prepared 2 sichas. That way, if the girls come in the evening, they won't say we already heard it. Okay. So I said 1 sicha in the afternoon to the girls, went very well. And then in the evening, I said a sicha to the other sicha to the women, and it also went very well. And I spoke for about 40 minutes, and I finished. When I finished, there was silence. And the women go, talk some more, talk some more. And when they said talk some more, I couldn't think of a single word to say. Okay, it passed, and they started to talk, to sing. Lugano, by train, is an hour away from Milano. When I got on that train, I cried the whole way home. Here, we're looking to spread chassidus, to tell something. Here they asked me for more, and I didn't have more to give them. I had no sipuk that I had said one sikh in the afternoon and another sikh. None of that made any sense. All I could concentrate on was that they asked for more, and I didn't have more to give them. For about 2, 3 days, I went around in a daze. And then I sat down and I wrote a letter to the Rebbe. I had written a letter 2 months before. Again, I had started the school. Nobody wanted the school. And without going into too many details, I wrote a letter. The letter that I wrote 2 months before was I feel like my neshama was sent down to this world just to knock on people's doors and hear them say no. If that's what I'm supposed to do, no problem. I'll do it. But it doesn't seem to me to have any tachlis. The Rebbe didn't answer. 2 months later, there was this Bassie with Lugano. And here again, I wrote and I described what happened. And in my letter, I wrote, when I was in Beis Yaakov, there were such smart girls in my class. Maybe if the Rebbe had chosen one of them to go, she could have done so much more than me. I got back a beautiful letter from the Rebbe. I used to write to the Rebbe in Yiddish. He would answer me in English. I got back and the Rebbe answered like this. In answer to your letter and also your previous correspondence, I think when I sent that first letter, she's going to send another one. I'll wait till she sends it. Okay, an answer. So this was an answer to both letters. He says, Chassidus talks about 2 types of planting. You can plant a field of wheat. A lot grows very quickly, but when you sell it, it's not worth so much. You can plant a pardes of trees, fruit. It takes years for the fruit to grow, but once it's there and you sell it, you make a lot more money. So too in our actions. Sometimes we do something and we see the results immediately, but they may not be so good. Other times we have to wait, but when we finally see the results, it was worth waiting for. It seems that what you are doing falls in the second category. It'll take longer for you to see the results of what you're doing, but when you'll see them, you'll see it was worth waiting for. And then he writes, it seems from your letter as though you have doubts as to whether the one that chose you chose well. I don't think you think so, but if you do, I won't take it personally. I went crazy when I read those words. I won't take it personally. But being as I'm sure that you are sure that the one that chose you chose well, continue your work, and in Mir Hashem, you will be Matzliach. I read that letter at a kenes, and I give it to whoever wants it, especially the shluchos, because I feel it gives so much chizuk, because so many times they have pu'ulas, and you don't see the results right away, and you feel so, as though, why did I do this? What's happening? I'm not being matzliach, and so on and so forth. And I've forgotten answers from shluchos who have told me that having that letter gave them a lot of chizuk. My story with Pagano.
That's incredible. Okay, another story. Hope it's okay, but this is from your daughter. Okay, so
I'll tell you, I understood what your question was. I couldn't have dreamt when I came to Milano that I would see what I see today. First of all, when we came, I told you these were all people from the Shoah and so on and so forth. Covering your hair wasn't a given. 2 women covered their hair when I came here. One was the wife, Rebbetzin, the wife of the Sheikhet, and the other was a balabast, a woman married to one of the balabatim. She was from Antwerp, and so these 2 women covered their hair. I was the third. Ad kedei kach, that in the first year I wasn't feeling so. One Shabbos, a woman came to visit me, and she said, I should take it off. When I told my husband he had a fit and a half, I said, what are you getting so excited? You think what she said to me is going to make a difference? You think I don't? Because I was very young. I was only 20 years old at the time. But anyway, today, Beli Ayin Hara, when I go to a simcha, I don't count women. I count Sheitlach. I count how many I have there. It is unbelievable. Today, it is a given. You get married, you cover your hair. It was something that some people, when I see it, I can't even believe that it's so. But what I want to tell you is this. We started Taka very slowly with the school. I'll tell you something very interesting. I had a teacher. She was the principal of the Italian department of the 3.5 kids that we had. She was an Italian woman, but she was a teacher. She was principal and teacher. It was the last day of school, June. The kids went home, and she and I went to the park. And I go, Mimi, we have so few kids in school. This Italian non-Jewish woman points at me. She goes, Bassie, the Rebbe told you to make a school. He didn't say how many kids have to be in it. She gave me more chizik than anybody could. Slowly. Gan Yisrael. We started Gan Yisrael with 5-10 kids not in. And can I know that it's two camps now. It's a boys' camp and a girls' camp separately. It's can I know. What should I tell you? In the beginning, for instance, when my younger sister got married, I didn't go home for her wedding. I didn't go for her wedding because she was getting married in Tammuz when there was Gan Yisrael. And I knew that if I would leave Milano to go to America to her wedding, the parents wouldn't send their kids to Gan Yisrael if I wasn't there. I wrote, my husband wanted me to write to the Rebbe, at least something, because he felt very, I wrote to the Rebbe. I didn't say, can I, should I not? I wrote to the Rebbe. I decided not to go to my sister's wedding because it's more important for me to be here so that Gan Yisrael doesn't close. At Kedei Kach, it was necessary. And what should I tell you? Slowly.
And did you get an answer from the Rebbe?
On that, no. Yes, I did. He didn't say yes or no to go or not. He just gave me brachas. He gave me brachas and finished. That's all. No, I wanted to say something else. Anyway, all right, slowly we started. One of the Sippel nieces, when we came, she was 10 years old. Many years later, someone said, a journalist, he was interviewing her, and he said to her, what do you remember about Judaism when you were a child? Her answer, pre-Garelik or post-Garelik? Pre-Garelik, my parents were religious. They kept Shabbos, they kept kosher. Post-Garelik, but in the street, in public. Post-Garelik, says Rabbi Garelik came with the way he was dressed, his beard, his hat, his surtuk, and his attitude was, and this is how I will present myself to the president of Italy. She says, they gave us pride in being Jewish. She got married, and she had her 3 children. When her 3rd child was graduating from our school, we only had up to 8th grade then. At that graduation, she came on stage, spontaneously, without us even knowing, and she made a speech. And she was comparing the way her children grew up in our school and the way she grew up in the school of the community. And she was saying, not only did the school give her children pride and courage and security in what they were doing, she says, we as parents, we got the same thing. We knew we had who to turn to. We knew that we were getting direction. She made this beautiful speech about it. And slowly, that is what happened. And today, Kanainhara, besides going up to 8th grade, then we have a girls' high school. And now they're starting a boys' high school. But meanwhile, the girls' high school is ready. Our girls' high school is the only high school in the world that is a bagrut. In other words, they have a Hebrew program. They get the whole Hebrew program. It comes from Eretz Yisrael. They graduate from our high school as though they graduated in Eretz Yisrael. They have an Israeli diploma, plus the fact what they have from Italy. But it is a bagrut. It's an Israeli school. Plus kashrus, restaurants. There was when I go in, there's a very, very popular ice cream store. Every time I walk in there, the owner goes, Mora! I had him in kindergarten. When Rabbi Chadikov said to me, start with a school, that way your children, your students will become your collaborators. Today, many times, when we have one of the rabbis teaching in seminar or something, sometimes I'll poke my head into the room and I'll say, girls, I had him in kindergarten. Okay? Wherever I turn, wherever, balabatim, men, women, today, I mean, they're grandparents. I started the school 67 years ago. 65 years ago. We're here 67. Yes, I started it with the kindergarten in my house. And then slowly, and it was very slow because they said, a Rebbetzin making a school, a Rebbetzin is making a school, a Rebbetzin makes chond, a Rebbetzin makes kegel. That was their attitude. Today, kenain hora. Milan, when we came, we used to go to Lugano to get kashrus. Today, the Shluchim from Lugano send their kids to Milano to school. Every day they send it to Milano. They come to Milano for kashrus. It's beli ayin hara. Wherever we turn, whatever we do, beli ayin hara. And I tell you again, it's the Rebbe. The Rebbe had such vision that it's unbelievable. It's the Rebbe all the way through, from A to Z.
Wow. So amazing. And it's so amazing that you get to see this in real, like what you accomplished and your husband together.
Baruch Hashem. Baruch
Thank you,
Hashem.
Hashem. I loved everything you said.
It was interesting also for the people. I can't go into this too much, but they admired very much the relationship between my husband and me, although we never, ever did anything. It seemed, and I only found out about this afterwards when they would be sending me the Nichum of Vedim or things like that about our beautiful. I said, how do you know our marriages? They knew. It's the same niece of Mr. Sipple says about my husband. He taught our husbands how to respect a wife.
That's amazing. That's
Yes.
incredible. And it just shows what you said earlier. It's not what you say, it's showing, acting, living, being, and not telling people what to do, showing people what to do. Always works the best way.
They won't listen. There's no point in telling them. They won't listen.
Right. That's so incredible. I'm so humbled and honored that we got you to share like probably this much of your shluchas. And I'm really thankful to your daughter, Sari, for encouraging me to get you to share the personal stories. Fascinating.
Now I'm going to get hold of Sari.
I'm sure she's going to be so happy. I forgot to mention this in the beginning, so I'm going to say this now. I do these classes weekly in memory of my dear grandmothers, Rivka Dina Bas Yosef Yehuda. I hope you're proud, and Bela Bas Betzalel. And to save a life is saving a world, and he saved many in the Soviet Union. My great uncle, known as Chaim Berelshansky, his name is Chaim Dov Ben Betzalel. Also, in honor of a dear friend, sister, and sister-in-law who perished in a terrible fire last year, Sonia Zahara Bas David. And I do this in honor of my two special uncles who I love dearly. Not every gem is a giant, and not every giant is a gem. Rabbi Lipsker was both a giant and a gem. His full name is Shalom Dober Ben Eliyahu Akiva. And my other uncle, every room he would walk into, the room would light up, and now the heavens are lit. And that is Reb Michal Vyshetsky, and his full name is Yechiel Michal Ben Moshe. And I am so lucky to have such special uncles. Now they're just one floor up. So honored and humbled. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Hashem and the Rebbe for giving me this opportunity to bring light to the world through people's journeys and stories. And we bring Torah and light. And I feel very humbled that I got this opportunity, and continue to get this opportunity and to get the best speakers. So, so grateful for that. I also want to say thank you to my mashpia of this class, Shane D. Jacobson, who is really so wonderful and is so helpful behind the scenes. I want to say thank you to all the ambassadors of the class. An ambassador is someone that takes this class and spreads it on their chats and status, and in 1 minute, poof, like goes out into the world. And I share my merits with you. I fully believe this class has so many merits. So if you'd like to be an ambassador and share this in your town or your country or your city, reach out to me. I want to say thank you to everyone that tunes in weekly. We have people that keep coming back, so we're doing something right. And my nephew Donnie for putting it on our podcast, on Spotify, which is called The Soulful Spot. And lastly, and most importantly, I want to thank my dear husband for supporting me with this class, and for him helping me with the tech and putting this on our YouTube channel, which is under my maiden name, Chaya Mink, ChayAMink. Check it out. And God bless you. And really, thank you, Mrs. Garelik, for your. This was the most amazing class. This was a pre-recording, so I got to have a one-on-one with you, and it's beyond amazing. Your students are so lucky. Your seminary, one day we'll have to do a whole nother segment on your seminary girls, and just unreal. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.
And Hashem should bless you. You should live till Mashiach and with Mashiach.
Okay,
That,
today.
that is my aunt's line. So I'm sharing a great line on my aunt, Chani Lipsker, Rebbe Chani Lipsker. Thank you so much.